Welcome to the online cooking series of the 5 mother sauces. Today we're going to be focusing on sauce Espagnole. Sauce Espagnole starts with a base liquid of beef stock. So we have our beef stock here today, and the very first step before you get started with your Espagnole sauce is making your brown roux. So remembering, that's going to be our thickening agent. It's going to be equal parts butter and flour. We're going to cook that in our saute pan until it gets nice and brown. Put it inside a portion container so it's ready for your recipe when it comes to that step. Here in my pot, to begin our sauce, I have some bacon rendering. So rendering is just the process of taking a fat like bacon and heating it to where the fat liquefies. It turns from a solid to a liquid. So that way we can use that bacon fat to saute our vegetables. So we have that already going here in our pot for us. And while this is rendering, we'll go ahead and focus on our vegetables. So we have half an onion that we're going to dice. So I'm going to go through and cut my onion into juliennes. Rotate my onion 90 degrees and cut it into dices. We're not hugely concerned about the knife cuts when it comes to the sauce Espagnole. All of the ingredients that we're adding to our sauce are going to be strained out later. So if they're not perfectly diced, that's completely okay. We're going to go ahead and add our onions to our pot. And then we're going to take our carrots and dice those as well. Add those into our pot with our onions. And then our celery. Quick little dice through and add those into our pot. So at this stage, we just want to sweat our vegetables. We don't want any color on them. We don't want to caramelize them. We just want to start to get them nice and translucent, break them down a little bit, get them nice and soft. So we'll stir those in with our bacon, get them coated with our bacon fat. And let those start to sweat. All right, we're going to increase our heat just a little bit. And then while our vegetables are softening with our bacon, we're going to go over some of the rest of our ingredients. So we have some tomato paste, which is going to add a nice depth of flavor to our sauce. It's going to add a little bit of sweetness and acidity from the tomatoes. We also are going to have a bouquet garni, and that is going to be a bundle of herbs. So we have a little bit of basil and parsley, some bay leaves, a little bit of peppercorns that we're going to add into our sauce once we get our liquid in. Alright, so while our onions and carrots and celery are softening, we'll go ahead and add in our tomato paste. And we want to make sure we add our tomato paste in before our vegetables have really broken down. We want to give our tomato paste enough time to cook and start to caramelize. There's a lot of sugar in tomato product. And that sugar, as it cooks, it starts to develop these darker notes as they caramelize. So we want to make sure we add it in before we add in our stock to give it that little bit of time to develop those flavors. Alright, so you can see that our vegetables are nicely coated with our tomato paste. Our tomato paste is starting to brown nicely. It's caramelizing with our vegetables. And now we can go ahead and add in our beef stock. All right, we're going to turn our heat all the way up, and we're going to give our roux just a little bit of a stir. Sometimes as your roux sits, the flour and the butter will try to start to separate. You just give it a nice stir and it'll come back together, and we can go ahead and temper that into our beef stock. So our roux is nicely stirred together. We're going to take some of our beef stock and we're going to add some of it to our roux. And this process is known as tempering. So we have our roux that's at a different temperature than our beef stock. We want to slowly merge those two together so they can come up to the same temperature and add it to our sauce. So that way there isn't such a shock between the two liquids. That's going to help us eliminate the possibility of having any lumps in our sauce later on. So nicely stir this together. Add it into our beef stock. Give it a nice good stir. And then add it straight into our pot. Then we're going to go ahead and add in the ingredients for our bouquet garni. So we have our bay leaves, our herbs, our parsley, and our basil, a few black peppercorns. Make sure our herbs are nicely submerged into our liquid. And at this point, you're going to let your sauce simmer for about 45 minutes. We really want to make sure that we give our sauce enough time for the flavors to marry together. We want to give our roux enough time for those starches to develop and start to absorb some of that liquid and thicken our sauce. And then also using that natural process of reduction to thicken our sauce as well. So we'll bring it up to a boil, let it turn it down just a little bit so it's at a nice gentle simmer. Simmer it for about 45 minutes. When you're checking the consistency of your sauces, same way that we did with our other mother sauces, with our velouté, our bechamel, and even with our hollandaise, we're going to use that nappe culinary term where we take our spatula spoon and we coat the back of our spatula spoon with the sauce. We drag our finger through to check and make sure that that consistency is correct for our sauce. Once your sauce is nicely thickened and you've used that nappe cooking technique, you're going to strain your sauce in a fine mesh strainer because we do not want to have our sauce to be chunky at all. We want it nice and smooth. So all of our vegetables, bacon, our herbs from our bouquet garni have done their job. We've extracted as much of that flavor as possible. So that part is going to be discarded, and we want that just nice thickened liquid at the end. Once it is strained, we'll check for seasoning and we'll be ready to serve our sauce Espagnole. Just like all of our other mother sauces are meant to have other ingredients added into them. Those, once those additions are made, they're called derivatives. Those derivatives can be made in so many different ways. For sauce Espagnole, you can add sliced mushrooms and do a mushroom demi-glace that can go over braised short ribs or on top of a steak, or you can add just a ton of different types of herbs, some tarragon, parsley, some oregano, and make an herb espagnole to go over any type of braised pork tenderloin or beef tenderloin is great with it. But adding those additional flavors can really elevate your mother sauces. So again, sauce Espagnole, starting with that base liquid of beef stock. adding in a couple of extra ingredients to really elevate that flavor. And the main thickening agent in our sauce Espagnole is going to be that brown roux. Remember that brown roux, equal parts butter and flour, is cooked together to have that nice dark brown color, and then added into our sauce. So it looks like our sauce is just about ready. So we're going to go ahead and give it a nice final good stir. We'll turn off our heat. And we're going to strain our sauce in a fine mesh strainer to make sure we catch any of those pieces of vegetables, herbs, or spices that we've added in. And using our spatula, we just want to move those vegetables around, make sure we're getting all of our liquid separated from our vegetables. Okay, and we'll sit this back in our pot. We'll bring our bowl up front, and using a ladle, we're just going to portion out some of our Espagnole sauce. And there you have it, sauce Espagnole.